Hello and welcome to Discourse of Peacocks, where today we're going to be discussing Leeds United 7, yes, 7, Cardiff City nil, in what can only be described as probably the most scintillating, spectacular, and in some cases sexy football that I personally have ever seen at Leeds United. It was a game that within the first couple of minutes, yet again, we just took full control of and we never let go. Not for 1 minute. Even though they did have 2 shots on target and Meslier came in and actually was effective, it didn't feel like they were going to do anything other than fail miserably, just like they did. So let's get straight into it. I'm not even going to apologise this week because this week's going to be a long one. And I suggest you get a cup of tea, some biscuits, just get something to sit and relax and enjoy a very interesting video about how we're going to win the league. Let's get straight into my incredibly long list of good things. It was our biggest win under Farker by a considerable margin. We haven't scored over 4 goals with Daniel Farker at the helm. I think after the amount of pressure that came on and the amount of pessimistic opinions that occurred online and on social media after the 0-0 bore draw against Burnley on Monday night, I think Daniel Farker, for once, just said, go get them, go demolish them, go dehumanize them, go utterly show your dominance. And we did, and we didn't disappoint in the slightest. You would be hard-pressed to argue that any one of our players, both starting and coming off the bench, wouldn't have an arguable case for man of the match. And the fact that that is even the case, the fact that we can't even nitpick and have any quarrels really about this game, the fact that even on the 2 brief occasions that Meslier had to touch the ball, he didn't mess up. Nobody messed up. Everybody did their job. Everybody performed like they were Leeds United from the very day that they came out of the womb. They fought tooth and nail for one another. They just made themselves look like a Premier League team. I'm not saying that we aren't going to face challenges. I'm not saying that we won't lose a game or 2 before the end of the season, or maybe even more. But what I am saying is the quality between us and teams below us, which is everybody else in the league, is so vast. And Daniel Farker has got the best out of players that a lot of people were quite happy to write off, myself included, with Junior Firpo. If he'd have gone when we got relegated, obviously we hadn't really seen anything super positive from him, so I would have been absolutely fine if he'd have gone. I wouldn't have complained in the slightest. Whereas Daniel Farker's system, Daniel Farker's man management, Daniel Farker's encouragement and team talks, and clearly instilling a team spirit back into Leeds United that had been dwindling away since Bielsa left. The fact that he's done all of this makes me, sing Firpo's song when you can hear it ringing out around Ellen Road. It makes me feel happy that he is still our player. It makes me feel connected to the players in cases that I only had a sprinkling of over the last couple of seasons, again, really since Marcelo left. So the fact that we are there and there's so many players that could have arguably been man of the match. Dan James, I said to my husband, as soon as Dan James scored, I said, right, no matter what happens throughout the rest of this game, Dan James is my man of the match. There's nothing that will top that. Firpo then rocks up with 3 assists. I know he got the assist for Dan James's goal, but that was 1 assist, and Dan James had 2 assists and a goal. But he rocked up his first game back, starting, for since before Christmas, I think. I can't quite remember now, actually. Anyway, a long time. And the fact that he just, Sam Byram, I won't knock him as a player. He's been fantastic. He's played a lot more games for us over the last 2 seasons than I think any of us thought that he would do. He's never really done anything wrong. But having a left-footed left back who has the ability to kind of be like this kind of phantom person. He's everywhere. He's whatever player you need him to be. Do you need him to be a left back? Do you need him to be a winger? Do you need him to be a number 10? Do you need him to be a striker? He's just kind of appears everywhere on the pitch, and he was fantastic. Pirro, it was his best performance since the Norwich game last season, and I would go as far to say as it was his best performance, full stop. As a Leeds United player, I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he knitted the play together so well. And I know pre-assists aren't really a thing, but his shot creating actions were brilliant. He set up the first goal. He was just absolutely phenomenal. I didn't find myself really getting frustrated with him, which is a very common occurrence in our household, where I will be shouting and swearing at Joel Pirro because of the fact that he doesn't do the things that we desperately want him to do as a number 9. He's like not quite a 9, not a 10. He's a bit of an odd one. But yesterday, his oddness worked because he did go deep for it. He knitted the play very well together. He was in the box, for the 7th goal. He was everywhere that we needed him to be. He wasn't, I don't know, this sounds very kind of like Batman-esque. He wasn't the hero we wanted, he was the hero we needed. But he just flourished yesterday, and I hope that we see that Pirro again and again and again this season, because he was unexpected. His finishing is never unexpected because of the fact that, did anybody really doubt that he was going to score that penalty yesterday? How long has it been since we've had a penalty taker who we can pretty much say, yeah, that's a goal kind of thing? He's just so calm, so laid back. And, there was singing of "No Pirro, no party" before he took the penalty. I don't want to bash any other players when we are on such a high after this game, but there's certain other strikers who you wouldn't chant their name before they'd scored the goal, because of the fact that we would all be holding our breath, expecting it to be a bit of a failure. So it's so nice to have that. I thought Tanaka was back to his best. He's had a little bit of a dip in form over the kind of festive New Year period. I know he's had a couple of goals in that time, but his actual overall performance hasn't been as good as we experienced in kind of like October, November, and early December. I thought he was everywhere. He was just collecting the ball, intercepting passes. His calmness, which for me, I think calmness like that, yes, it's innate, but I also think it has to come from the top. We saw how Jesse Marsch's frantic football infected players, and the fact that it also infected us as fans. We just became so panicky and so jittery because we had no idea what we were doing. The players had no idea what they were doing. It was just erratic, scary kind of football. And occasionally, it worked, but more times than not, it didn't. Whereas Daniel Farke has this very calming presence, and I feel that that is translating onto the pitch and through the players. And Tanaka yesterday, he did a few movements where he kind of pirouetted his way out of trouble, and he was just so calm, and he just looked like a Premier League player who happened to be playing in the Championship. Again, it's a cliche by this point, but how on earth we got him for £3 million, I will never, ever understand, because The guy is a Premier League player. He's a top, top league player. He isn't a Championship or Bundesliga 2 player. So we have got a proper diamond with him. I think I'm going to try and again, I know I said I'm not bothered if people complain that it's a long video, but again, I don't wanna be here for 3 hours. Um, but I'm gonna run through the goals, as quick as I possibly can because there's 7 of them if you didn't know. Um, but the first goal, again, beautiful layoff from Pirro to Dan James, and a Dan James of old would have either skied it completely, would have tried to go down potentially for a foul from, because the goalkeeper did catch him, which is why he loses his footing and then ends up going further towards the byline than he probably wanted to. But again, calmness. He remained calm, he remained composed, and he wasn't selfish. It's one of his biggest qualities is that he is so selfless and that he laid the ball off. So basically Aronson could not miss. And if he had have missed, that would have all been on Aronson, not on Dan James. Dan James did everything perfectly. He was selfless, he was composed, he was calm. He knew what his next plan was instead of just letting his legs do the running and forgetting what he needs to do next. He was very calm, composed, and what a great way to start the game. 5 or 6 minutes in, fantastic. Then the second goal, again, another Dan James assist. Gets to the byline, cuts it back. There's Solomon. Again, I know I've said this multiple times before, but I love the relationship that is progressing and blossoming between Dan James and Solomon. I think that they have a real winger understanding of one another. They're very similar type wingers, and Solomon does cut in slightly more than Dan James does, but I just love that relationship. Third goal, we had to wait until only 5 minutes into the second half, but we did have to wait until the second half. The second goal came in the 13th minute. Third goal came in the 50th minute. Dan James had tried it a few times. You could tell that he was like, right, I've ticked off 2 assists now. I think it's my time to actually finish and get the goal myself. He was determined. He was getting that goal, whether it bloody killed him yesterday. And he was fantastic and a lovely celebration. I love the Leeds kind of pictures of him afterwards, just kind of saying inevitable, like he is Thanos, he is inevitable. And he is at Ellen Road, what's that, 17 consecutive games now where he has scored, which hasn't happened since Eddie Gray, who had 25, I think, consecutive goals at Ellen Road that resulted obviously in us going on to win the game. He's just such a lead player, and that was a Firpo assist. Firpo, he did the same thing, no, twice. Well, he did it multiple times, but we scored twice from him running to the byline and just smashing it right across the face of goal in the hope that one of us or it could have ended up as an own goal. But if you put it with some pace and some conviction across the front of goal, the likelihood is a defender will bash it into their own net while trying to run back to defend it, or we will get our toes, heads, shoulders, knees and toes on the ball and it will go in the back of the net. And that happened with Dan James' his first goal and only goal in that game. The fourth goal came in the 65th minute, and it was Dan James who earned the penalty. I'm going to give him that as the assist because, it's just Dan James. But it was the actual foul was soft, but it was there. He was one-on-one with the goalkeeper. He would have scored that, and it was a silly foul to really concede on Cardiff's side. You just don't do that, or you put a nudge on the shoulder or something, but you don't, go with your feet and get a player who's already got their legs in the air type of thing. It was always going to be a penalty. Mr. Cool, Mr. Calm, Mr. Collected, Mr. Pirro. There was no doubt that was 4-0, even before he'd kicked the ball. Um, Fifth goal, uh, Nonto, I believe he was on the pitch, was it 62 or 65 seconds? We'll say 65. 65 seconds goal, quickest goal scored by a substitute in the Championship this season. I think Tanaka got the assist. I don't know whether it counts as the assist because it was so far back on the pitch, but he was the last Leeds player the last player to touch the ball before Nonto scored. So I'm going to give Tanaka the assist. Whether it officially goes down, I'm not quite sure yet. But he needed that, in fact, and the next goal scorer also needed it. But Nonto looked the camaraderie, the passion and the love and just joy that other players were getting from their teammates succeeding and scoring, and the relief that was on his face was massive. His smile, I mean, Willie Nonto has an infectious smile anyway, but the fact that he looked overjoyed and that hopefully that now kind of, opens up the tap on Willie Nonto getting back into form. He's still only 21. I, as well as many other people, but I have been critical of him over the last couple of months because he started off the season fantastically and then has just had a steady decline. And then over the Christmas period, it kind of went like that to the point where Dan James and Solomon went like that, Willie Nonto went like that. So he's then been kept out of the team. He's been unable to regain form via starting games because how do you justify taking Dan James and Solomon out? They've scored the most goals and assists from any player in the Championship after the Oxford 4-0 game are Dan James and Solomon. So Nonto has struggled to get in because we've got two players on fire. We're not a charity case, we know that. Sixth goal, another assist by Firpo. Byline, crossed the face of goal. Joseph, fantastic. It looked like he was getting visibly emotional on the pitch, which again, hopefully that is unlocking the tap to more goals and confidence and to just get that, I don't know, kind of that young, I don't give no damns type of player that we saw at the beginning of the season and sporadically last season. If we can see that again from Joseph, we're going to finish the season with a bang instead of a whimper this year. He really needed that. And my mummy heart kind of jumped into overdrive when I saw how emotional he looked on the pitch. I just thought, oh, you really needed that. And what a better game to know that because the game was already just well won. I mean, the game was won in the 13th minute, really, if we've been realistic. But because he didn't have that weight of expectation, I felt that it freed him to do what he was brilliant at doing in preseason and earlier on in the season. And he just let kind of nature take over instead of overthinking it. And fantastic. What a great substitute performance. And again, it proves that he can come off the bench and make an impact, which is something that we haven't really seen from him. We've seen it from Pirro coming off the bench and getting goals, but I think he's only had one goal contribution coming off the bench as Mateo Joseph. So yeah, fantastic. Sixth goal. I'm already on, cloud nine, just thinking, wow, what a game. We're so comfortable. And the 90th minute hasn't even kind of gone in. We've had a lot of games this season where we've left it late to make the scoreline look more comfortable than it actually was. Chef Wednesday, games like that. We want seven. We want seven ringing out around Ellen Road, and the Leeds United players did not disappoint, and they followed instructions given by a very vocal and very loud and emphatic and joyous Ellen Road. And Firpo with his hat trick of assists, slid the ball through in his number 10 position to Joel Pirot, who managed to score whilst kind of being kind of dragged down as well. Again, it was at that point I was like, right, that's enough now, lads. Like they're already dead. Let's just leave them. Um, we were absolutely united from the very first minute to the minute we left the pitch. It it was astounding, and, it's the biggest win in my lifetime. It's the biggest win in a lot of Leeds United's, supporters' lifetimes. It's something that hopefully we don't have to wait another 50 years to see, but it's something that nobody will be forgetting anytime soon. Um, right, now we've done the good, let's go on to the I've literally got 2 points, and they're not even bad points. Um, we genuinely could have scored more. Obviously we had a goal by Dan James ruled out for Solomon being offside, which he was offside, so that was fine. But, we missed really, like, just close opportunities. Ramazani didn't score. He was the only player of our attacking, front 6. Nonto, Dan James, Solomon, Pirro, Aronson. Yeah, so only player of our 6 front players who played throughout that game who didn't get a goal. He was very, very close 2 or 3 times. Dragged one wide, one got saved, one just, I think, again went slightly wide. So he had moments. I don't think that will put him off, and I don't think that that's. But this is how nitpicky I'm trying to be. Like, that's it. Those are my only bad points. Is that we honestly, 7-0, absolutely phenomenal scoreline, not to be sniffed at ever. But we actually could have scored more. We were still wasteful, and we scored 7 goals. I think we had an XG of like 5.73 or something like that. It was definitely over 5, and a expected XG against of, is it 0.05? Something like that. Absolutely wild, wild statistics, which kind of moves me nicely onto the evidence, which is the entire of last season and this season, especially this season. Daniel Farke has gone on and on in his press conferences about how we have the highest XG in the league. We have the lowest XG against in the league. And sometimes when obviously you're only winning 2 or 3-0, how, spoiled away, it can be infuriating because you think, well, if we have the highest XG, why are we not scoring more? Yes, we're scoring 2 goals, and because we smother teams, we don't have to exert ourselves. We can maintain energy for the next game, and for, the 3-game weeks, we can conserve that energy because we don't have to outscore. I again, I hate to make comparisons, but you can't not make comparisons. Bielsa, sometimes we always have to be like, it was swashbuckling football because we had to, because we would often concede, because we were so high pressing that there was very rarely that many people back. Whereas Daniel Farke just controls and smothers the opposition to the point where they just don't have the guts to go over their own halfway line. Whereas it felt like today, it was like Farke, we realised that Farke football can be fun when another team comes to play football. And but Cardiff have kind of proved and why you don't try and play football against us, because look what we can do. We can absolutely destroy you, humiliate you, if you try and play football against us, because every millimetre of space that you leave open for us, we will exploit that with the best wingers, the best fullbacks in the league. We will destroy you. So maybe Scott Parker is feeling a little bit smug about himself after that game, seeing, yes, I know they got another surprising 0-0 game, but he can at least feel vindicated about the fact of, well, if we had gone toe to toe with Leeds United, they just destroyed Cardiff 7-0. But it can be fun. It finally feels like it's only taken a season and a half, but we have finally battered and humiliated a team literally and not just figuratively. Excuse me. On the page, every single statistic suggests that we batter 98%, 99% of every team that we play. But that doesn't always convert to actually on the pitch. Look at the Burnley game at Elland Road. We battered them and we slip once and they score and they get all 3 points. But yesterday we battered Cardiff in every metric possible. But the most important metric is the ball actually ending up in the back of the net. And we did that again and again and again and again and again and again and again. It was really good to see. It felt like Daniel Farke was vindicated yesterday, that the fact that he kept everything so tight on Monday, and then it kind of felt like at half time, he just says, you know what, I'm sick of being called boring. I'm sick of you guys being called boring and safe. He just kind of like whispered them and just went, end them. And that's what we get. We get a 7-goal thriller and a one-sided 7-goal thriller. We've been involved, Swansea 3-4 away. We've been involved in 7-goal thrillers already this season, but we haven't been involved in a 7-goal thriller that was so one-sided. Only 3 managers have ever managed 7-0 wins with Leeds United. We have Dick Ray, if you know, you know, Joe Blackburn. We had Don Revie, obviously, and now Daniel Farke. So he was one of only 3 managers to dish out. We haven't dished out a 7-0 since 1972 against Southampton. And hopefully we don't have to wait another 50 years. Daniel Farke is the joint fastest manager to get us to 50 wins. It took him 87 games, which is the same as Simon Grayson. Everybody other than Ramazani, which is what I've already said, in our attacking lineup, scored yesterday. The fact that, again, I said it earlier, they're already dead. We had Dan James and Solomon, who are the most informed scoring duo in the league since November, I think, whenever we played Oxford. So you take them off and then you bring on Nonto, Joseph, Ramazani, and I bet that Cardiff bus ride home was the quietest bus ride. I bet they were licking their wounds from the moment they stepped off the pitch yesterday. It was beautiful to inflict that sort of devastation on another team. And yeah, absolutely incredible. I'm buzzing. I've watched so much content over the last 20 plus hours because of the fact that I just utterly on, 7th heaven, cloud 9, throw some other numbers out there. We had goals coming from everywhere on the pitch now, which obviously we're going into the last 30 hours roughly of the transfer window. I still hope we get 2 players in. I hope we get a 10/9 or and a centre back, right-sided centre back. But we're getting goals from everywhere. We're getting assists from everywhere. We are just a goal machine. We have scored 60 goals. We have a plus goal difference. We have a goal difference of plus 41. We've got more goal difference than some teams have points on the board. You know, you're going all the way down to what, like 17th or something like that. Uh, it's just absolutely incredible. We have over double Sheffield United's goal difference. You know, we've got, I think Burnley are on 27. So we've got 14 more. Yeah, 14 more than Burnley. So again, as cliched as it sounds, it's an extra point. Right, I'm gonna leave it there. It's been half an hour. Thank you for sticking with me. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How many times have you watched the highlights, extended highlights? How many times have you watched, you know, just other content creators just trying to soak up all of this positive energy? Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, become a channel member if you would like. And please let's just enjoy this. Let's not get carried away, but let's enjoy this because it feels pretty damn good. I will see you in the next one. Bye.